Hi, I'm Gillian Allen. Welcome to this presentation on cognitive flexibility, Assignment 6 by Gillian Allen in Advanced Equine Behavior for Dr. Robin Foster. Horses are exposed to many challenging learning tasks during their training. Some of these tasks run counter to their natural ethology and would normally engage a species-specific defense mechanism, such as the flight, fight, or freeze responses. Horses are naturally neophobic, cautious of new experiences that are hardwired to their defense mechanism. An experience that is fearful can easily lead to learned behaviors that are undesirable and challenging to the owner, such as refusing to load into a trailer. When these bad habits, bad for humans but desirable for the horse, interfere with normal activities with the horse, then the owner may send the horse for retraining. In retraining, the horse must suppress one behavior and replace it with another. Cognitive flexibility is the capacity to extinguish one behavior and replace it with another learned behavior. Measuring the neurotransmitters that are involved in positively or negatively affecting the learning process, such as cortisol, dopamine, and noradrenaline, is not feasible in equine research, but biomarkers of these neurochemicals are now better understood and more easily used in research. One way to measure cognitive flexibility is to use the reversal learning tasks. In the reversal learning task, the original learning is taught to a test group of horses. Its mirror task is using the same energy, cues, and physical movement is taught to a second test group of horses. For example, in this example, the original learning task is to train the horse to step away from a hip tap stimulus. The mirror task is to train the horse to step towards the hip tap stimulus, as you see in Figure 1. The first task is instinctive to the hardwired species-specific defense mechanism, namely to move away from aversive pressure, and is termed the instinctive task type. The second task, to move towards the hip tap, is a non-instinctive task type. Once the horses in each group have successfully shown to have learned their task, they are then considered to have formed a habit, to step away from the hip tap or step towards the hip tap. Then the tasks are switched for each group of horses, and the new task is called cognitive flexibility learning. The group of horses with the original learning task of stepping away from the hip tap must now learn to step towards the hip tap. And the group of horses with the original learning task of stepping towards the hip tap must now learn to step away from the hip tap. Each horse must extinguish the first habit and replace it with a new habit. The rate at which the horse can unlearn one task and relearn the new task is a measure of its cognitive flexibility. The horse learns the instinctive tasks more easily than the non-instinctive tasks and have a more difficult time extinguishing the instinctive learned task when the reverse learning is tested. Various factors can also impact cognitive flexibility. The two neural networks work together in extinguishing a habit and acquisition and solidification of learning. These involve different neurotransmitters and different parts of the brain. The flexible, goal-directed network is the trial and error aspect of learning, and the inflexible stimulus-response network consolidates the habit. When the stimulus-response network is dominant, habits are hard to extinguish. As the horse unlearns one habit and relearns a new habit, the goal-directed network must override the stimulus-response network to extinguish the old habits and allow new habits to form. In retraining, we frequently ask the horse to learn tasks that are non-instinctual. Ethological stressors can be both social and environmental stressors. An example of a social stressor is a barn sour horse who will not leave his social group. Some environmental stressors include entering small confined spaces, like trailer loading, and being tied with uncontrolled pulling. Using horse ethology in retraining will improve the acquisition of a new task. An example of this would be to train a horse to enter a trailer by following a calm buddy. Most importantly, avoid fear responses when training, as the behavior will be easily learned and much more difficult to extinguish. Inadvertently training with a fear response is the reason why most horses are sent for retraining. Equitation science has outlined 10 principles of training. Each principle is important to the training process. There are 4 that are salient to the retraining a bad behavior. Train according to your horse's ethology and cognition. Trainers are often heard to anthropomorphize a horse's behavior, and in doing so, they are no longer focused on the horse's ethology and cognition, but upon themselves. When the horse does not pick up the new skill quickly, terms such as stubborn, wily, and smart are used, and punishment is often the result when we have expectations for the horse that are not in line with the horse's ethology. Anthropomorphism of the horse does not aid in training. Avoid and disassociate flight responses. When initially retraining the bad behavior, it's usually a fear-based and flight response is initiated. Spooking, bolting, rearing, and balking are all behaviors that we see for retraining. If the horse has repeated the behavior over and over again, it has a well-ingrained habit base based on fear and will be difficult to extinguish. Demonstrate the minimum levels of arousal sufficient for training. A heart rate rise from moderate exercise is optimal to learning, but too much stress-related arousal is detrimental to learning. Shape responses and movements. Very small learning steps are needed to move from one behavior to another. Reinforce at the slightest hint of making the right choice, as it takes time for the neural networks to extinguish habits, engage in new learning. Research has shown that personality, stress, exercise, and emotional state can all impact cognitive flexibility. Increased cognitive flexibility is shown in fearless horses and horses that are moderately exercised prior to the training session. Decreased cognitive flexibility is shown for horses with learned helplessness and those with negative emotional state. Using positive reinforcement in retraining is beneficial to create a positive emotional state. Retraining a horse requires many different skills. The most important are patience and an understanding of equitation science. Patience allows the neural networks to extinguish the bad behavior and orient to the new behavior. The horse makes errors in their initial attempts to learn a new behavior and often chooses the poor behavior that is familiar over attempting a new behavior. Too often this attempt is met with punishment when the trainer is not patient or does not understand how horses learn. Understanding equitation science keeps the training focused on the horse's welfare and guides the trainer with parameters. As I watch and listen to the video presentations of my classmates, I can see how cognitive flexibility is the mechanism that enables a fearful horse to learn to load into a trailer or an anxious horse to leave his paddock mates. The understanding of the science that explains behavior change is the basis of this presentation. Thank you for listening.